Welcome to another episode of our Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I talk to Anvit, the founder of Compound, Companion, and I'm guessing I missed the between word as companion because there is a PAW in the name. Anvit Varanasi, a dedicated entrepreneur with a background in management and a deep love for pets, embarked on a journey to create Companion, on online dog training app that addresses behavioral issues in dogs. Companion uniqueness lies in its fusion of technology and human assistance, making the process of correcting these issues more affordable and enjoyable for pet owners. In this interview, Anvit shares his inspiring journey of conceiving the validation of Companion startup idea, offering insights into his personal and professional growth as an entrepreneur in the world of pet care and innovation. So I hope you enjoy the show. Anvit, welcome to the show.
Hi, Yash. Thank you very much.
Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you would like to share with our audience?
Yes, I do. So it's a quote by Craig Ballantyne. It goes like, "Success is simple once you accept how hard it is."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but like my journey with that has it's sort of evolved over the years. Where especially after I got into entrepreneurship full time, which is
Mm-hmm.
about 2 years, just over 2 years ago. So I mean, initially I thought it was more on the physical side, like the typical long hours, X, Y, and Z. But then uh, the more and more time I spent as a founder, I realized that it was much more than just physical. It's actually more so about developing the mental strength and the discipline,
Mm-hmm.
that's needed to sort of have like a tunnel-like vision
Mm-hmm.
that you're supposed to have as an early stage founder at least, because a lot can be going, it's a high pressure and high volatile environment, right? So it's important to a sort of iron out, or like make sure the curve is as smooth as possible, and like we're rock solid. And the
Mm-hmm.
best way to do that is, I guess, have an understanding that it's not an easy journey, and like that firstly helps me prepare to tackle the uncertainties.
Indeed, indeed. And your code started your code gave me a seed for my brain to start thinking because I couldn't agree more with this. I come from India, and when I moved to UK when I was a teenager, um, I used to get bullied in the schools, and every time I used to come back home, my mom is like, you know what, Ash, you need to understand that the more harder it gets to you, the other side of the road will be more shinier. It will be more light for you there. And that's something which kept me going. And I get I guess that helped me out through my whole career, and that's what bring me into the entrepreneurship world. So thanks for that quote. So tell us about Companion then. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve here?
So, dog ownership, as you must have noticed, in the UK has increased dramatically,
Mm-hmm.
particularly during and post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And this has definitely fueled a huge increase in behavioral problems in dogs. We've got weekly stories of dog attacks and worse. The BBC, for example, states that dog attacks have actually grown at about twice the rate of the number of new pet dogs in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And studies also reveal that so there's a Dogs Trust, which is one of the biggest animal welfare charities in the UK. It conducted
Mm-hmm.
a study which revealed that in the UK there are at least 5 to 6 million dogs that currently display undesirable behaviors. And I'm a pet parent myself, and
Wow.
I know how how emotionally attached humans are to their pets.
Indeed.
So you know, and also tackling this problem of behavioral issues is not simple.
Mm.
Um, And that's exactly where we come in. Owners need an easy and a low cost way to access help and support that is
Mm.
endorsed by industry experts and certified professionals. As you said,
Right.
that's exactly where we come in. We're building an online dog training app specifically tailored to address behavioral issues in dog. How are we
Mm-hmm.
unique? As you said, we inject an element of technology to the
Mm-hmm.
existing element of human training assistance
Mm-hmm.
to iron out the uncertainties of dog training. So, we want to make the entire process less stressful and more
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable. Our aim, if you put it in one single line, is to make dogs smile.
Indeed, indeed. And what the part of your family which makes you smile every single time you come back home, it's your job, it's your duty, to be fair, to make sure that at least you're taking care of their mental health so that they can replicate that for you. Great stuff. So let's talk about where the story began. Where did the idea for companion come from? And please pardon me if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly, and you can correct me what's the right pronunciation for it.
That is right. It's companion, like pets are our companions, right? So it's basically companion but with a paw. So
Indeed.
that's the idea behind the name. And about how about the journey of companion, well, it started off as a completely different thing, and as with every startup, we've had to go through our own set of iterations and pivots. So
Mm-hmm.
initially, when I wanted to start like venture into entrepreneurship full time,
Mm-hmm.
being a pet parent myself, I felt like pet care industry was a nice, like pets and entrepreneurship would be a nice fusion personally for myself given my affinity towards pets. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also someone who believes in being emotionally connected to the work, because that's exactly when you can really enjoy your work and find a sense of purpose from it. So
Sure.
when I then like I just started introspecting about the problems that I face as a pet parent with my pooch at home. So I've got a lovely golden retriever back home,
Oh,
and
no.
one of the issues I faced in particular was finding play dates for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically you take your dog to a park or on the street, right? And more often than not, these places are filled with dogs with all sorts of temperaments and breeds and also sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized the importance of having a dedicated platform that would let owners browse through and select playdates with dogs with similar temperaments,
Mm-hmm.
such that it becomes more fruitful. And I
Indeed.
couldn't find any such platform. And so the initial idea was to go out and build, if you could say, like a Tinder for dogs for
Indeed.
owners to like arrange more informed playdates for their pets.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, I'm a management student, and I majored in entrepreneurship and innovation. So one of the fundamentals that I have learned and I strongly believe in entrepreneurship is that you don't chase a solution or you don't chase an idea, you chase the problem that your particular idea is trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And then so my initial step was I went and I did some customer discovery research, which typically involved, speaking to a few hundred dog owners to
Mm-hmm.
basically try and understand if it was a problem that was big enough to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I realized that finding playdates was not as big a problem as I thought it was for a majority of the population, or like majority of the pet owners.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I sort of had to go back to square one where I was like, okay, fine, if that's not a big enough problem, what is your biggest problem? What do you really struggle with?
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I got the initial insight that a lot of the pet parents biggest concern is behavioral issues in dog.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to sort of like dissect into it to exactly understand the nuances of it, and like what within behavioral issues are they really struggling with, what are the existing solutions they have, and why,
Mm-hmm.
what are the inefficiencies in the existing solutions, to then try and do a bit of design thinking and finally come up with whatever we have.
Right. Okay, got your point. And this is very interesting because even though your idea is very, it's very specific, niche, um, but your journey as an entrepreneur has taken you through exact same steps or ups and downs which any other entrepreneur could go through, to be fair, right? You hit a blocker, then you go back to square one, then you figure out something, and then you again, but you keep going. So I want to learn more about you, your upbringing, childhood, and your early experiences, etc. But before we go into that, let's talk more about when you had this epiphany. Did you looked into the market? Were there any similar products? What was going on in that time, and what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move ahead with the overall idea? And I know that you already mentioned that you did interviewed hundreds of pet owners, and that's how you figured out. But was there any other analysis part of that research, or there is other data sources for you available for this conclusion?
Yeah, I studied management and entrepreneurship at university, right? So, analysis and evaluation, like all of this, like comes second nature to me. I can't help it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it was a blend of first-hand insights from pet owners combined with lots of, secondary market research. So the
Mm,
market research, like once we figured that this is the problem that we want to solve, then obviously, like if you wanted to digitize it, it's going to be an online dog training app. So then the secondary research basically involved what are how many online dog training apps are there in the
mm,
market, what is each of their strength, what is each of their weaknesses, and then to try and find gaps and correlate them with the unique selling points that we've developed for ourselves.
mm,
So if you want me to vaguely explain it or simply quickly explain it, most of the online or all of the online dog training apps that are out there mainly focus on puppy training. So that's your basic obedience training. You sit, stand, a few tricks, and these are something that can be easily operationalized.
mm,
So you could sort of like create a few modules and but with behavioral training, a one size fits all approach does not work because each dog has different issues. It could have different things that cause anxiety or aggression, and like the triggers for each dog could be different. It's not feasible and not possible to sort of generalize them. So
mm,
then the like a lot of work involved around analyzing how we can operationalize
mm,
whilst approaching a unique personalized um, way of going about addressing each issues, because ultimately we want to make sure our solution works to the best of its capabilities.
mm. Right. Okay. And this is very interesting because there are some business models based on a software as a service or an app which could be replicated in current world quicker, faster, because they are sort of like inspired by other solutions built by other entrepreneurs. But then when there is when something like companion comes around, and the way how the whole operation or the whole solution works is different than the usual modules available in the market, it's get more difficult for an entrepreneur, for a founder, to put them all together. So would you be able to share the process you potentially, I'm not saying that it's a bulletproof process, you might have fallen down and come back up, but would you be able to share with our listeners of what process you have taken on board on the table to get the first MVP done for yourself? That would help a lot of founders.
Before I do that, I'd like to quickly shed light on one important aspect which I think is relevant and useful. So, like dog training typically, I mean, normal dog training, sure, that's still fine. But like when you're training your dog to address a few of the issues that it already has, and as
Hmm.
I said, because it's an emotional journey for pet dog owners as well. One
Hmm.
of the fundamental philosophies that we've approached is empathy, because more than addressing issues, what we realized as part of the customer interviews and like my personal interactions with like potential customers is that they need reassurance,
Yeah.
like, and that's something no amount of technology or artificial intelligence can replicate.
Mm,
Uh, you can have as detailed plans as possible, you can have like as good metrics as possible to sort of like show them
mm,
the solution is working, but
mm,
at the end, like, you need a person to just put a hand on your shoulder and just say, it's all right, we're there with you along the journey. Don't worry, you're not alone. And let's collectively try and, help solve all your issues. And that's a fundamental ethos of Companion. We don't
mm,
just want to be like a digital app or like, like a SaaS platform. How we
mm,
also want to differ is um, the way I like to think of ourselves as partners to our clients.
mm,
you know we want to be there along their journey and help them address the issues. Now, coming to your question of how I've actually developed the MVP. So what I did was, so again, taking a step back, when I spoke with those 200 odd dog owners, and when I did my own bit of design thinking and ideation,
mhm,
I then went back to them just to sort of cross validate whether or not because identifying the problem is one thing, but building a solution that is right to address the problem is another thing. So
mm,
basically, what I went back and did was, I'm part of a lot of like dog owner groups on Facebook and Reddit,
mhm,
and I've built a relationship with them over a few months as part of my initial customer research.
mm,
So while I had like an idea of what the solution could be like in my back pocket, because I had built a relationship with them, I went back to them for like a third round, and just I was just like, okay, fine. So I understood what your problems are, right? So how do you think they could be solved? Like, if you would like to see an app or a solution out there that could help you iron out some of these difficulties you face, what
mhm,
would it look like? And I got an unbelievable amount of insight.
mm,
And then I basically cross verified that with the ideas that I had. And it basically allowed me to take and implement a lot of the ideas that users have suggested, because
mm,
ultimately I'm building a product for them to use. So I want to make sure that my product has whatever they want, right? So, and once I had all of this, the process of actually building the MVP itself was pretty straightforward, I'd say. So because I basically outsourced it to an agency.
mhm,
Um, I might just plug it in. It's called Verticode. They specialize in building MVPs for startups,
mhm,
early stage startups, and they were a great team to work with.
mhm. Okay, that's great. That's great. So, so from what I have understood is majority of your work was actually majority of your work involved user research, gaining insights from the actual end users of your solution. Is that correct?
Yes, taking research,
Mm-hmm.
uh, making my own understanding out of it, but
Mm-hmm.
then most essentially, like, whatever my insights or my ideas were that from that research, then the second most important thing involved taking those ideas or insights back to the users to ensure there was a correlation.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay, great stuff. So, and I would like to go into where you are in terms of business, size of team, etc. But before we go into that, um, I'm eager to learn more about the person behind this venture. Can you take us back to your roots and share our with our listeners about your upbringing, childhood? How did your early experiences shaped your journey and eventually led you to become a visionary entrepreneur you are today?
Sure. So I'm from India too. Come from the southern part of India. There's a city called Hyderabad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only child. Come from a doctor. I was born into a doctor's family.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I guess one of the biggest things that has shaped me into the person that I am is the fact that I was given a complete freedom to sort of just choose whichever profession I wanted to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I wanted to be a businessman. Entrepreneurship, and like it's funny because when people are like typically like people have like one or two, like eureka moments, or sometimes,
Mm,
they trial and experiment, and but that was not the case with me. In fact, like when I decided that I wanted to be a businessman, like I'd say I was quite young.
mhm,
I don't think I perhaps was in my teens or maybe not. And it was
mhm,
just a random thought that came, and it just stuck with me. And
mm,
so after I finished my GCSEs, so I took sciences in GCSEs, and I was not a great fan of sciences.
mhm.
So for my A levels, I chose business and economics as my majors, and I really enjoyed studying them, because given their relevance to day-to-day lives, like for example, like in business, business management module, especially like it involved a lot of like research on real life case studies, and like identifying and analyzing what existing businesses are doing, and
Yeah.
that really appealed to me.
Mm,
And then about entrepreneurship, I guess it was more of a, initially when, so I did my bachelor's or undergrad from Nottingham Trent University.
mhm,
I majored in business management and entrepreneurship. And
mhm,
about why I chose entrepreneurship, it was more of a logical choice because
mhm,
I come from a doctor's family and I don't have a business to take over. So
mm.
if I wanna, become a businessman, then I'd have to, start build my own business. Hence
Indeed.
why entrepreneurship.
So were there any key influences from your family or extended family or even surroundings, like that played a significant role in shaping your entrepreneur spirit? For example, an uncle or a friend or a friend's dad, somebody like, have you read Rich Dad and Poor Dad? Because
I
that
have
person,
read Rich Dad and Poor Dad, yes.
something, someone like that.
You could say, well, I mean, although my father's a doctor, when he was young,
Hmm.
like he set out to build his own practice. So, that is also entrepreneurial. Like he decided that he wanted to establish his own practice, and he's built it from scratch. So
Hmm.
you could say maybe subconsciously that always played an effect, or you could even say it may perhaps runs in the genetics.
Hmm.
But ever since a young age, I guess I had a great affinity towards leadership roles. For example,
Hmm.
I was a member of the student council in my high school. You know, not
Hmm.
sure if a lot of your listeners are aware of the concept, but
So you like
but, like,
leadership
I
in
like leadership. Yes.
entrepreneurship. Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, that's interesting. So let's go back to the business side then. So could you give a sense of the size of the business, how many users you have on your application platform, size of team, etc.
Sure. So we're currently a team of four.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the founder. I'm working closely with a certified dog trainer slash behaviorist.
Mm-hmm.
She's got 15 plus years of experience. So it's you could say I'm sort of like the business mind, whereas she's the theoretical, or like the you know the training mind behind it.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got a small team of two lovely marketing, like two lovely staff
Mm-hmm.
take care of all things marketing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're still quite young, we're small, it's very informal between us. There's no hierarchy or anything.
Is it
It
is it completely bootstrap or have you taken any funding on
is
it?
completely bootstrapped.
Okay.
So that involves, like my own resources, but
Mm-hmm.
also, as I said, like I did my master's from Imperial College London, and we have our in-house incubation center, or like an accelerator called the Enterprise Lab. And
Mm-hmm.
they've been of great help because so the initial customer discovery research that I did,
Mm-hmm.
I joined a program called the Discovery Fund,
Mm-hmm.
wherein they, gave us a certain amount of money to go. You spend that on research. Unfortunately, at the end, it was a competition. So at the end of it, I was one of the winners of the competition as well. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
prize money, which also came in handy.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. It's always good while you're into the first or initial phases of your startup journey. It's always helpful either financial help or mental coaching help. All this kind of help
So,
is sort of like a build an environment around you to give you more motivation and keep you focused for your
and
goal.
it's also a great way of validation, right? Because early stages, it's all sort of like on paper, there's nothing concrete on the
Mm,
ground. It's just a bunch of ideas. And when, if you're able to convince a panel or, certain people of your idea, that's a great way of validating and like, further boosting self-confidence, I
indeed.
believe.
So one thing which is highlighted from our conversation in the last 30 minutes or something is you did a lot of uh, talking with your end customers. You did a lot of research, and I interview a lot of founders and I talk to them in person also. And one thing they face challenge with is connecting with their end users, connecting with the actual people who are going to use their solution. What was the process you followed in terms of gaining access to these people? Were there, you said that you're a member of Facebook and a Reddit group, but that's something available for everyone on the internet. But what exactly you actually did in terms of becoming a go-to personality where these people are connecting with you, talking to you? Because it's a huge deal, right? Somebody spending time with you to talk to you, right? It's not at least in England, I know that it's people don't easily give their time to you.
I guess the good part of building a pet care startup is that there are lots and lots of dogs in the UK, and it's very easy to find them. Sometimes all you've got to do is just go to the nearest park.
Mm,
It's as simple as that. And let's face it, people love talking about their pets. I can go on and on about my golden retriever.
yeah, yeah.
So that I guess that has definitely made it easier to access, potential users or potential clients which are dog owners.
Mm,
And firstly, I did not find the fact that I was an Indian to be a hindrance or a challenge.
mhm,
Um, you know, Firstly, I did not find that to be the case. And you've
mhm,
got to understand that, like, I've been a member of these dog owner groups for a
mm,
while before like I started asking them for their insights, as part of my research. So I guess,
mm,
like in hindsight, for online platforms or communities, the fact that I was an active member, where I could, be like interact or engage on each other posts and comments X, Y, and Z. I guess that also built a certain level of familiarity.
yeah.
That has definitely, made things easier for me.
Mm. So basically, you're not saying that it was instant. You've been a member of the community. You have been somebody who is a part of that community for a you know for a period of time, and that helped you create your personality with other people in the group or community, and then that also helped you to interact with them, start questioning them, and then get more insights.
Yeah, I would say it definitely helped build a relationship or sort of
Hmm.
like break the ice.
Hmm. Sure.
Um, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk more about the business model then. You say that. So let's consider a hypothetical question. Like my name is Ash. I have a dog, and I am concerned about my dog's mental health. What, how do I get onboarded with your solution? What are the different steps, and what sort of revenue model is in the place which makes you money as a solution provider?
So our business model is simple. It's a monthly subscription plan because another thing we want to tackle is finding a certified behaviorist is expensive. It's not cheap.
Mm,
The average lifetime cost of hiring certified behaviorist is £600 in the UK.
mm,
And we love our pets. We want to go above and beyond, and we could do anything and spend any amount of money, but we also have to take into consideration the economic climate that we are in, with rising costs of living, inflation. It's not easy. £600 is, I wouldn't say it's a massive amount of money, but it's not a small amount either.
Mm.
Like lots of people might have to think twice before spending a few £100 on something.
Sure,
So
sure.
we wanted to make it affordable as well, but at the same time, we also wanted to ensure utmost quality.
Mm.
So that's our business. It's a tier-based subscription program. We've got like two pricing points. That's how the business model and the revenues work. And could you remind me of your other question?
I was just wondering, like, how do I? So, is it like a
Right.
phone app or a browser-based app? How does it work? And then, what sort of pricing you have for individuals like me?
That's right, user journey. So our current MVP is a web-based app, which means that you could also download and add it to your home screen as a widget. The reason we went ahead with creating a web-based app was the primary reason was while we know that majority of the people in the UK use iPhones, the fact that we're building an app doesn't restrict our target market to just the UK. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've got a global platform. In fact, like the people who have of the users who have taken part in our pilot test,
Mm-hmm.
they don't just come from the UK. They come from three different continents.
Mm.
So yes, we wanted to sort of also get information on what operating systems or what devices people use the most. So hence why we built a web-based app, and the
Mm-hmm.
user journey is very simple. You user creates an account, and then they're taken through a sort of like a gamified or an interactive survey or like a
Mm-hmm.
quiz.
Mm-hmm.
And the aim of that quiz is to get as much understanding as possible about the exact issues a particular user is facing with their pet. And the quiz So once the user signs up, they're taken through a very interactive quiz in the form of a questionnaire. And our aim is to get as much information as possible from the guests or like our users about the exact issue they're facing with their dog. Sometimes it could be multiple issues, and the information from that quiz is then sort of like accessed by our in-house, certified dog trainer slash behaviorist.
Yeah.
um, Sometimes it could also involve, having like a one-on-one conversation
Mm.
with the user to then put together a tailored program to help address issues.
Indeed. Indeed. Okay. Great stuff. And from a subscription perspective, then how much it will cost me if I register on the tier one, like the basic package on the app?
It's simple. It's 9.99 a month. So it's £9.99. It's under £10 a month.
£10 a month. Okay, that's good. That's good. So I bet you get lots of customers, because I think £10 a month to look after my dog, I would definitely do that, because that's something.
Yeah,
Your dogs are like your babies. You don't,
absolutely.
you know, you don't look at how much you have to spend if it
Yeah.
is so little, and then you just take it. Great stuff. And with I want to talk to you more, but it's like we have very less time remaining right now, and as the structure of the podcast also. So before I take you to the lightning round,
Hmm.
I want to ask you one more question, which is, throughout your journey and experience, there must have been valuable lessons learned. If you don't mind, could you reflect on your experience and tell us about one mistake, or a setback, or maybe not a mistake, it's just a lesson learned that you have encountered along the way, that you now consider a learning in your life, and then what advice would you give us, our listeners, based on this experience?
I like the fact that you've used the word lesson and not a mistake, because that's exactly how I look at my mistakes. It's
Yeah.
about lesson learned. And what's important for me personally is to make sure I learn from something. And when I learn from something, to make sure I don't repeat that mistake again.
Sure.
So I guess my one biggest learning, especially for Companion, my journey with Companion is it's not over till it's over, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because the initial phase of customer discovery and research and ideation, That took a little longer than I thought,
mm,
because you've got like lots of data to analyze, and then you iterate. Um, and like sometimes you iterate, you come up, you get really excited about an idea you think it could really solve, and then you take it to customers, and they're not so excited.
yeah, yeah,
So I guess in those moments, it's about just taking it on the chin and just going back to the drawing board. You know.
indeed. Okay, so we should wrap up now. Then we are gonna go into the lightning round. I've got six quick fire questions for you. So just try and answer them as quickly as you can.
Sure.
Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
What one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Um, I'd say self-awareness and like like having that personal development arc is
Mm,
very important to sort of like help a founder stay grounded through volatility. You know,
mm, mm.
personally, like I'd say like that's been one of my biggest armors.
Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't agree more on this one because this is something which comes from inside. You can't just, you can always learn entrepreneurship, become a founder, but this is something has to be
Yeah,
developed in your personality.
because in like only in high pressure or high volatile situations is when there's an increased need to think with a calm mind.
Mm, mm. Indeed, indeed. Okay, so what book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Sort of going back to my previous answer, I'd say like um a starting level, or like like a basic book for personal development and self-awareness is it's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy.
Mm,
um, and that has sort of like I read that book like a few years ago,
mm,
fortunately, before I started working on Companion, and that was the first time I was ever exposed or like introduced to the concept of subconscious mind. And like it's a very easy to read book. It doesn't have a lot of like technical jargon in it. Very simple. The author makes it. He relates it to day-to-day instances in life, and that has sort of like put me on that path of reading more and more books around this subject.
sure, sure. What's one of the best pieces of business advice you have received?
The best piece of advice I have received, in fact, is to focus on problem and not the solution.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
we had a guest lecture by the author of The Lean Startup,
Hmm.
and that was one thing he constantly reiterated on: focus
Yeah.
on the problem.
Indeed, if you understand the problem completely, it helps you build the solution ultimately.
Yeah,
So that, what's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I journal a lot,
Mm,
so there's that. But I'm also a huge fan of motorsport.
hmm.
So, I follow Formula One, but I also do a lot of like karting in my free time.
Mm,
So I wouldn't exactly call it a productivity hack, but like if I want to unwind,
mm.
that's my go-to thing. Anything related to motorsport, it's almost like it's therapeutic for me. So that's my way of like switching off and recharging my batteries.
Sure, sure. Got it, got it. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had the time?
A new or a crazy business idea I would like to pursue. Hmm, that's a tough one. There's lots of chatter about AI replacing humans, right?
Mm,
Um, I'm too naive in that subject, but like from whatever little understanding I have, um, one sort of like no-brainer is that AI cannot replace human emotions, right?
indeed. Yeah.
So maybe not as a business idea, but I'd want to explore that aspect more.
Mm, mm. Indeed. Yeah, and that's going to be so much valuable in next 10 to 15 years,
Yeah,
because everybody will be interacting with AI onto their day-to-day life, and they will miss human touch, human connection at some
yeah.
point. So that's
Because
something.
also coming, because also like, because my father is a doctor and he's a psychiatrist,
Mm,
in that. So a lot of his job or profession involves, providing reassurance to his patients. So I've
mm,
seen, how beneficial or how good the human element of it is. So just
mm,
out of curiosity, I just like to see if it can be replicated. I'm not saying it should, but I just
mm.
want to see what the other side looks like.
Sure, sure. And the last question is, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Hmm. It's one interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about me is it's the fact that it's funny, but like it's the fact that every time I get asked this question, I tell myself that I need to come up with an answer, but I still haven't managed to come up with one yet.
That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the lightning round done then. So great, great, Anit. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking the last few years of building this amazing, business, and some of the ups and downs along the way. If people want to check out Companion, what's the best way to do that? And if folks want to get in touch with you personally, what's the best way to do that?
Um, well, my name is Anvit Varanasi. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll share a link to you if you want to attach it.
Yeah.
As for the company website, it's simple. It's www.companion.co.uk. So that's companion, but with a paw.
Mm,
You can type the same and find us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Twitter, and even LinkedIn.
mm.
And I'm happy to send over those links as well if you want to attach them.
Indeed, definitely. I'll
Yeah.
put that into the description. Great. And with I love the our conversation. It was, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and impactful work you're doing with Companion. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it too.
Thank you all for tuning into our episode of Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Anvit insightful and inspiring. If you're a founder or industry expert interested in getting into or sharing your story on our podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out. Simply email me at ash@artcircles.com and let's connect for a potential interview opportunity. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out Companion website and subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. We have a lineup of incredible guests and valuable insights coming your way. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.